All right, straight to a Fox News alert. The London Bridge attacker has now been identified, yes, as a convicted terrorist. Police say Usman Khan killed 2 people, injured 3 others.
Bystanders fighting the attacker, taking his large knife and holding him down until police arrived. Khan opening his jacket to reveal a fake suicide vest. He was then shot and killed. Now Prime Minister Boris Johnson is calling on tougher sentences for convicts.
I have long argued that it is a mistake to allow serious and violent criminals to come out of prison early, and it is very important that we get out of that habit.
Khan had been locked up for plotting to bomb the London Stock Exchange in 2012. He was then released from prison last year after agreeing to wear a monitoring device.
This just days before President Trump is set to visit London for a big NATO summit. It gives you an idea of the stakes on the ground, because you have people, average people, walking on that bridge saying, you know, we need to do something here. One guy pulled the knife out of his hands, the attacker's hands, and somebody that was known to police as a terrorist now unleashing more terror.
Now, why they think that you can put someone in jail for terrorism for 8 years and then they're going to go through some rehabilitation program, and as though wearing an ankle monitor is going to stop this. Clearly not. This brings a fundamental question as when people are convicted of terrorist acts, can they actually be rehabilitated? Because let me tell you, the idea around jihadism is not something that can be reformed that easily. That is ingrained deep in the soul.
No, when they first arrested this guy in 2012, Usama Khan, he made clear, I'm either going to die a martyr, we're going to win the jihad, or I'm going to prison. So in prison over 8 years, you would have to believe that he's totally a changed man. But the judge who put him in prison in the first place called him a serious jihadist. This is a Pakistani-born guy who had plotted to blow up the stock exchange in the UK and try to assassinate Boris Johnson as well. And it brings this, an instance like this, brings into question the Islamic terrorism problem that is across Europe, but specifically in the UK as well. As of right now, there are 800 live counterterrorism investigations in that country, 24 thwarted terrorist attacks in just the last 2 years alone. And you mentioned about rehabilitation, Nicole. This is a guy who was wearing an ankle bracelet. He's going to a conference called Learning Together, which is about criminal justice reform. And he had just shared his experience of being a rehabilitated prisoner until he decided to pull out 2 knives and stab
As if he was an example for other people to follow.
Think about that. The guy who's supposed to be the example ends up being the Islamic terrorist. You wonder how many people are being released who go straight back into radicalism. And
we saw what happened with those who were released from Guantanamo Bay. They go and they commit new terror attacks. So this brings a fundamental question on how we're handling or counterterrorism effects, especially when it comes to Afghanistan as well. It kind of ties in together, because if we want to support our military in Afghanistan and Iraq, then we need really strong counterterrorism efforts, and that includes how we, from the moment we begin questioning suspected terrorists to the way that they're treated, incarcerated, and whether we decide if they are able to be released into society again.
And Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, who's on the program earlier, said we maybe should look into ideological vetting of who's coming into our country, to include the UK. He also talked about ignoring warning signs. Here's Dr. Jasser.
As just crazy as this case is, I mean, it had every hallmark of warnings that we should have heeded, but the failures continue to repeat themselves. From the ones we're monitoring, to the ones that we're upstream, to the ones that we're letting into the countries in the West, we're failing at all 3 levels. So we need to be working together with NATO to have better intelligence of those we're monitoring, and to have a better upstream approach, and to stop working with Muslim Brotherhood groups and other Islamist ideologues upstream just because they're nonviolent.
Yeah, I mean, it is an ideological war at the end of the day. You have to discredit an ideology that is not compatible with the West, not compatible with freedom. This is about dominance and control. Islamism seeks to do that.
It's not that it's not compatible with the West. It's against the West. It's anti-Western civilization.
It wants to topple the West. And if that's inside your bloodstream and you're not serious about taking it on, you've got serious problems. Which is why NATO could do a lot more to be intentional about that. We'll see if that comes up next week when the president's there.
Headed to London in just a few days.